I'm going to pour coffee because that's the only thing keeping me alive. Okay. We need to address an issue that has come up for me and has also come up for millions of people around the world, I imagine, which is the use of antidepressants, or in my case, anxiety suppressants. Mm-hmm. Do you know what rumination is?
No, I'm not sure I do.
Rumination is where you have cyclical thoughts constantly about negative things that do not ever end in a solution, but thinks about the consequences of your actions, probably in the past, triggers, trauma.
Yep.
Basically, rumination is something that I do a lot, where my past, obviously we've talked about my nefarious past between you and me. I'm not going to go into all that. Basically, there's some traumatic things and situations that play out time and time again in my head. Mm-hmm. I think overtly I'm looking for a solution, but my brain obviously can't supply one because it's in the past.
Right. Yep. Okay,
so this week, basically, I went to the doctor to say not that I can't cope anymore, but I'm sick of the fight with anxiety.
Yep.
And I'm sick of struggling with everything. And reactions to my family, somebody says something to me and immediately I'm on the defensive where there's no need to be. I don't think.
Yeah.
So we need to, do all that. Now, obviously, I have not been the biggest advocate for using these kind of chemicals, before. In fact, I have, I've just remembered when I had the first tattoo shop in Hartford, they put me on them and I was on them for 5 days and I had heart palpitations. I was sweating. It was horrendous. So I binned that straight away and never went back. I have always found that being analytical with my own behaviour after I got clean from drugs was the only way that would keep me in check. But I don't think willpower is strong enough.
No, okay.
So long story short, I'm on the pill, son.
Hey.
And I've been on there 4 days. Now, the first 2 days were horrible.
Okay.
Sickness, feeling, anxiety ramped through the roof.
Oh.
But I don't think that's the pills. I think that's psychosomatic. I think you're looking for a cure immediately. And these things take a week to 2 weeks to work.
So you almost have like a spike because you're expecting it to go away and it doesn't. So therefore that causes more anxiety maybe?
Yeah, it's exactly that.
Right,
so
okay.
You're looking for the great cure. Now, let me tell you this now. My perception of these pills is this is not a cure.
Yep.
Okay? And also, having been a functioning drug addict, right, I can tell you this. No chemical is a cure for your problems.
Yep.
And if you've seen...
That's point 1 on my list then. I might have to cover that one.
Right, well, that's good. No, you need to give me your perspective on this. But perspective? That was a mixture of perception and perspective in one word.
Yeah.
Who needs two words?
I'll try and do it in one, if I can.
So, I mean, what are your initial feelings on, maybe on, make it personal for now? I mean, what are your personal feelings on me taking these things to sort it out, considering... I feel like we've both given each other advice over the years on how to cope.
Yeah, okay. So perhaps we'll go into my experiences through my dad of pharmaceutical assistance in dealing with mental health maybe a little bit later. But my initial thought is if they help you get through a period of time, good. But as you've just said, they're not a permanent solution.
No.
That's the basic top-level summary. I mean, Sean said last time that he recommends people coming off drugs to go on some form of, let's call it a suppressant, just to dull everything down a bit to help you deal with other stuff.
Yeah.
Whether these pills are aimed at doing that to give your mind a bit of space for it to settle and help you deal with it. If that's the case, then I'd be all for it. I'm never going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, obviously, and you probably wouldn't listen to me anyway, but I'll always give you an angle.
Yeah, I think the reason that we function as this little double act is the fact that you know, we can talk to each other, and I think there's an honesty.
Yeah.
So I think the key to all of this, and the key we will say to everyone every time is, if you need help, ask for it.
Yeah.
And so I went and asked for it.
Yeah. Totally.
Which is most unlike me, I have to say.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So why? Obviously, we both recognise that it's a short-term thing.
Yep.
Why do you fight against long-term use? What's the reasoning behind that?
I think. Well, I don't think. But my view is that in the same way that mental health issues shouldn't have the taboo about them, because it's no different in having a mental health issue versus breaking your leg.
Yeah.
In the same way, if you break your leg and you take paracetamol for the pain, that isn't going to fix the broken leg.
No.
So that very sort of direct analogy is the same thing, I think, with mental health stuff.
Can I pick a little hole in that?
You can pick a little hole in that.
Okay, taking a paracetamol, and this is on a very base level, say paracetamol was powerful enough to take away the pain long enough for your body to heal. Therefore...
Yeah, long enough, but you could do other things to help that heal quicker, couldn't you?
No, absolutely. But, I mean, I think that just was a point that interested me. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Simply because you can see that actually taking these antidepressants can be a way to give your body, or in this case your mind, time to heal.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether that works, because I'm not there yet.
Well, I guess the first reference to my dad, when he would get sectioned, taken into a mental health unit, the first thing they do generally is put you on some sort of suppressant, which turns you effectively into a zombie. When I used to go and see my dad from a very young age, it was like walking into One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Right.
If you've ever watched that film, that was exactly what it was like in the 70s and 80s of walking into a mental health unit. More recently, read one of Frank Bruno's books, called Let Me Be Frank, and he talks about his experiences of going into, and he says exactly the same thing. You are quite clearly intentionally put on some form of medication to bring everything down, and I've never really known, because I guess I was too young when it happened to my dad originally, so I never really questioned it, but I never knew whether that was to give your whole being that downtime to sort of reset and then sort of recover. I guess that's the point. But having spoken to my dad about it in later years, he felt like they just wanted to shut him up and stick him in a box and leave him there for a bit of time.
It does seem... I cannot see how being in a room full of other people who are having the same struggles or even more intense struggles, and they're all in a vegetative state because of the narcotics they've been given, how that in any way can be helpful.
No, it felt to him, and I guess looking back at it, to me, like it was just you're sectioned for 30 days or whatever it is, and it was almost like, well, we need to deal with them. We need to just, nullify any threat that they pose to themselves or anyone else, which is why you get sectioned in the first place, by making them incapable of doing very much other than sleeping and walking around like a vegetable. Not that vegetables walk around, obviously, but do you know what I mean? That having that sort of zombie state.
Stops anyone from causing any trouble.
Yeah.
I think we are slightly guided by the fact that you and I have never been in a mental institution, and your father's experiences were a long time ago.
Yeah, no,
now,
not
without
so much
cheapening that. What? No. When was the last time?
The last time was when he died. He and again, I guess this is part of why I have an opinion against long-term usage. He took lithium. Basically his whole life, his whole adult life, in some shape or form. And whether he was told it would do it or not, I don't know, but in the end it screwed his kidneys. And he used to go and have regular blood tests to make sure the kidneys were functioning, and he was told once, his kidneys don't seem to be working very well, we need to take you off the drugs. They took him off the drugs, and he took a fairly significant dip, ended up in a mental institution and died 5 weeks later.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry for your loss in that. That's horrendous.
That's tough, right? But maybe we'll deal with how he died another time, because it's not really relevant to that. That was a different issue.
Can I ask a question? So do we know for a fact that lithium stops kidney function?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
And as far as I know, I'm not qualified to say this outright, but as far as my understanding of it is, they've never really known how it works. It just does. It's one of these things, a bit like electroconvulsive therapy, which he has also had, which is, in lots of people's eyes, fairly horrendous and Victorian.
What, electric shock brain therapy?
Yeah, sticking electrodes on the side of your head and shoving some volts through you.
Does that work? I mean, that's horrendous.
It's still, people still have it as well, yeah.
Holy shit.
My dad used to think it did. That was the one thing he said, that does reset. Not surprisingly, I guess, to some degree. But yeah,
I would say that it reset my fucking soul if it stopped them doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
wow.
So yeah, we've gone down a bit of a
no, but that's all right. That's what conversation is about.
Yeah. So long-term usage and the side effects of that long-term usage, obviously in this case, kidney failure.
Yep.
At his age, it was like, well, we can't do anything about that. So either you're going to die in 3 months because your kidneys will fail, or you'll end up. They didn't say this, but that turned out to be the case. You'll end up you'll struggle to cope without being on the meds you've been on for 50 years I guess at that point.
Yeah.
And therefore you will end up in a mental institution and you may never come out because we can't put you back on those drugs. We might try some other drugs, but at that age I think they really just sort of thought, well, you're not really worth saving, so let's just...
Obviously there's going to be emotion involved in that, and I think we should at some point investigate this situation and find an industry professional from that place to talk to about that. So if you work in a mental institution in an official capacity, then let me know, and we can sort out getting you on the show. The reason that I bring this up is the fact that Lee and I are just talking about our experiences rather than knowing anything, but we will bring in industry professionals. We had Sean Havoc last week, who is, a mental health professional, who deals frontline, who incidentally has just been promoted, which is really nice for him, and a validation for us that he actually does know what he's talking about, which he does. I worry about when you take the blame is the wrong word. When you take, blame. When you take the blame for your actions and you don't own it anymore. So, in theory, with my anxiety, and you have that, then your anxiety is taken away. You're no longer in control of how you deal with things and how your emotions roll. You're depending on a narcotic. What's the difference between that and me taking cocaine or heroin to cope?
In my opinion, there's no difference at all.
Wow.
Purely, from my perspective, I live a healthy lifestyle. I consciously live a healthy lifestyle now. I don't take paracetamol because I don't get headaches anymore because I live a healthy lifestyle. It's a bit of a sort of cyclical thing.
Okay.
I did suffer really badly with headaches. Found out that I've got a vitamin B12 deficiency.
Okay.
So I have vitamin B12 jabs once a month that boost my B12 level, and now I don't get headaches anymore. So I don't take over-the-counter medication. I don't, where possible, I say generally don't eat processed food. I eat clean. Try not to have any chemicals in my system because I think they're bad for you. Right. Part of this 50 and coping thing is I want to live as long as I can. So therefore, I don't really drink. I've never smoked. Never really done drugs, but it's all kind of the same to me. They're all chemicals, which is why I don't want to rely on them, which is why the general opinion, I'll come back to it probably a few times over the course of this, to get you through a period of time to help you cope with something, great. But I don't think having consciously putting chemicals in your body, for me, isn't the way of dealing with it.
No. I genuinely have no idea whether it is a good idea for me or not. I genuinely have no idea.
I'm not saying don't try either, though. I'm not saying don't do it. I said to you the other day. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying don't just do that. Right? So if you've got a mental health issue, this is my objection. This might be a bit controversial.
You can be controversial.
Right? Not everyone. There is an awful lot now of kids dealing with saying I've got anxiety, I'm having panic attacks, I'm whatever. Which I think sort of dumbs down proper mental illness. Right? Everyone suffers with anxiety. There's a very fine line between suffering with stress, as I do on a regular basis, being nervous about doing stuff, being overworked, being sad, all of that stuff we all deal with all the time. That isn't mental. That isn't a mental illness, but it is mental. It is a mental health area. So sorry. My point is the strong objection I have is you go to the doctor and say I'm feeling a bit down at the moment, and they go, right, you need to take some Prozac.
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
Fucking literally.
But part of the reason they do that, presumably, is that there are not enough counsellors out there for someone to sit in front of you for 3, 4, 5 sessions to go, right, so what is the cause of all of this? Let's process that. Let's do some EMDR or NLP training or whatever.
Right, I don't know what EMDR is.
EMDR is a method of dealing with your trauma. You hold these 2 little pods, they vibrate in your hands, and it's like a type of hypnosis. You get back to the point of the trauma and you process the trauma. Right. Basically. NLP, neo-linguistic programming, is it?
I don't know.
CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, all those, they're different therapies to help you process your previous trauma, basically. So all that I think should be where it starts, but there aren't enough practitioners that do that, so therefore it's easier for the doctor to say, yeah, you need to take some tablets. That's wrong in my eyes. But
yeah, no, absolutely. But then what are they supposed to do? That's the other thing. They're between a rock and a hard place. If I come to them and I say, I was very blunt with the doctor. Sorry, I'm shouting. I was very blunt with the people, and on the phone, you have to phone up at 8:30 in the morning, and you have to be in the queue of 72,000, but other people who have got colds. Yeah. Not to diminish the common cold, of course. It's a very serious affliction. Don't go to the doctor if you've got a cold, right? Go to bed, right? Get half a bottle of scotch and some honey, right? And do that, right? Because you annoy me, you people in the doctors. I've got a cold. There's nothing they can do for you. So, I went to the doctor. No, I phoned the doctor at 8:30, and I got the nice receptionist, thank God, because I was feeling pretty vulnerable. Right? I am not a vulnerable human being.
No.
Right? I'm very strong-willed. I don't feel that I'm weak in many ways. So me admitting that having anxiety means that I am admitting to a weakness, which doesn't sit well.
No, it doesn't with you, but you know that that's okay, don't you?
Yeah. The fact of the matter is recently I have learnt through looking at this show and looking at 50 and coping and looking at, everything that I'm trying to do. I mean, even from the weight loss, your wife has sorted me out, and I've lost 2 stone and a bit. I was 19.7 and now I'm 17.1 again this morning.
Yes.
Again, 1 pound away from goal. Goal, slimming world. Sorry.
But then we'll give you another goal, so that's okay.
Yeah, I don't want another goal. I want to eat cake, for God's sake. Right, so anyway, this is getting long and drawn out. Right, so making that phone call is an admission of weakness. To me.
To you, yeah.
Yeah. The outside world can all blanket it with all the, lovely, but it's not for me.
But it's not lovely. It's being able to ask for help, right? It's the underlying point of all of the stuff that we're talking about, isn't it?
But that's why there's a question mark after the coping, because I have no fucking idea if I'm coping or not, but I'm trying to cope. That's the key, right? I'm not falling apart. I run a successful tattoo shop.
Yep.
I run a very, very quiet metal business at the moment, which, is good. But I'm coping every day. But what I am doing is being short with people, who I shouldn't be. And I'm not giving the time possibly to situations I should. And I want to work in situations to make my life better, not make it worse.
Yeah.
So my perception of asking for help in that moment was weakness, even though I'm telling everyone, you have to do it. So the juxtaposition of that and the inverse proportional forces in the universe fighting against myself is the problem.
Yeah, there's a perception that is weakness, but that's the
rumination.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, though, isn't it? That's what we keep saying.
Yeah,
there's a perception that if you're going through a rubbish divorce, that you're alone. You're the only one that's been in that position. If you're going through bereavement, that, oh my God, people don't want to reach out. whether that's to a professional, whether that's to a friend, whether that's to the Samaritans.
Do you know why they don't want to reach out?
Because shame.
They don't want to be perceived as weak.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, like, there's a thing in The Sopranos. Remember The Sopranos?
I've never seen it, but I don't know why I haven't seen it, and it's on the list of something to do in the winter.
Tony Soprano is in therapy, and he is talking to his therapist, and he said, whatever happened to the Gary Cooper, strong, silent type? Why do we all have to talk about feelings? Well, the reason that we have to talk about feelings is for so long the Gary Cooper type was all there was for men.
Yeah.
There wasn't a place you could say anything. There wasn't a place you could cry. It wasn't, you can't do things like that around your family because your family would judge you for that. Back in the 50s, men were stoic, strong men. And the reason that alcoholism was so prevalent is because there was no other way out. And I feel it's important to communicate the way you're feeling. But also nowadays, I mean, who wants to listen to that? Everyone's got a set of problems, right? Everyone has a set of problems.
Yeah.
But it's not about, opening a bleeding heart. It's about just checking in with your friends, right? Like, so every so often, I have noticed that my phone has stopped ringing, right? A lot of things, apart from you and Nikki and, my wife and all of that. But, when you get to our age, there's a lot of separation from people you're friends with, or there is in my life. So if I don't pick up the phone and message somebody, I don't hear from anybody.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, that's very telling. Because one, the glib way of looking at it is everyone's dealing with their own shit and they're getting on with it and, blah, blah, blah. The other thing is it doesn't matter who's contacting who. The point is there's contact.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with checking in with a few people. I'll be honest with you, I don't have this massive group of friends. No. When I stopped taking drugs, I had to bin all of the people around me that were doing the same thing unless they were on the same journey I was. I hate talking about journeys, but it's true. It is a journey. So, basically, a lot of my friends dropped by the wayside. There are still people who I was involved with who have got clean, doing all that. Every so often, just check in, right? Or I check in with them. But my everyday friends as well, I realise I haven't heard from somebody. And then so I'll message them and go, you dead? What, what's happening? And every time I think that, have you seen Cool Runnings?
Yes.
Singer, you dead? Right? Oh, that goes in the back of my head. Right? Anyway, I don't know, where did that come from? Have I had too much coffee, George? Probably.
Or maybe not enough.
Yeah. But my point being is that, okay, you can show weakness. And for someone like me, who is perceived to be, in my eyes, residual self-image isn't just how you think you look. It's also how you portray yourself.
Yeah.
And I have always portrayed myself as someone who is invincible, someone who cannot be beaten down to the point of my own detriment.
Yeah. And again, that's the juxtaposition between you and me. I'm very open with my feelings. I'm quite a vulnerable person. And
you are now, though. Have you always been? With your marriage and everything?
Yeah, no, maybe not. I am now, though. So
now. It's learnt behaviour, though, right? You've learnt how to communicate.
Yeah.
That's really important. Now, you do these walk and talks, is it?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Tell me what they are.
Okay, so it's a group of men that live in Leighton, Buzzard and the surrounding area that get together twice a month.
How many people,
just walk,
roughly?
I think there's 50-odd members.
Really? That big?
Yeah, the walks range between 4 people and maybe 20 people, depending on who's available when. No pressure to attend.
No, just a thing that's there.
Yeah, and safe space is the phrase, isn't it, these days? We can talk about what you like. Generally, the talk isn't about mental health issues.
No.
But it's just, there's a lot of evidence to say that walking and talking is really helpful because you're not, eye contact directly with people. If you're talking to someone, you're walking on next to them, it's proven that you're more open with how you feel about stuff.
Because there's a separation.
Yeah, plus you get out in nature, plus you're doing a bit of exercise. And out of that, there's a WhatsApp group where they say, right, next walk is up Ivinghoe Beacon or wherever it's going to be. And out of that WhatsApp group, I think this was probably an unintended positive consequence, was every now and then someone goes, I'm having a bit of a rough week this week. Anyone about for a coffee?
Right.
And people, straight away, 2 or 3 people go, yeah, I'm around. And I think because I don't drink, I've never been a big drinker anyway, that pub culture of finishing work and going to the pub for a couple of pints with your mates, which was definitely the case of my parents' generation. I remember going to see my uncle and auntie, and even at the weekend, it'd come to like 5 o'clock. Uncle Don would go, right, I'm off down the pub, and people had that almost as their sort of support network. And that doesn't. I mean, people still go to the pub, obviously, but that daily thing doesn't happen anymore. So I think it puts that, it gives you that.
Do you know what's interesting? So you and I are roughly the same age, kind of thing, but my underlying childhood memory is, and my wife has said this, and she's 10 years younger, right? That the underlying memory of childhood is being either sat underneath a coat in a pub with a bottle of Coke and a packet of crisps, or, you know, while my parents were drinking, either in the pub or in the car park, or, you know, that. I don't remember that ever happening, but people say that. But yeah, I mean, there was a pub called the Ackland Hood when we were in a place called Stegursey in Somerset. My dad was a vicar. That every night he was in there with his parishioners, and he saw that as a way of touching base with everyone. Yeah,
so we've become a very sort of disparate society. So it gives you somewhere that you know you can go. We generally there's probably 2 or 3 guys that I see most times, and we just talk about work, and I guess that you are talking about the stresses and strains of the week.
There is no place. There is no place to just talk. Sorry, but chat shit. Just say what you're thinking. Just do what you do,
so at work, what we've got, because these days, doing an office job, obviously different for you, but doing an office job, most of our life is spent on Teams calls, conference calls,
right,
with or without a camera on. So what we did when lockdown hit and no one went to work anymore, we, at 10:45 every day, would put a tea break in the diary. You go on camera and you can't talk about work for 15 minutes, and we still do it now, because it just gives you that break from work, and it gives you the ability to talk about other stuff. It's the kind of, they call it the water cooler thing in America, where it's the chats you have around, you know, when you go make a cup of tea, because you're not in an office anymore, you don't have that space, and that's what builds friendships. You know, I've got 2 particular guys at work who I invited to my wedding, the proper solid mates. I spend more time talking to them than I do my mates, because I'm at work with them all the time. Yeah. So yeah, that's vitally important these days, of having, you know, spending your life.
Because the pub culture is thinning out, is it not? I mean, you know, pubs are closing 10 a penny because people don't have the money to go and spend. When pints are £5 a pint, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I remember going to the pub when I was younger and everything, and let me tell you, I've been inside a few pubs in my time. I even owned half a pub once. Anyway, what's that got to do with anything? The only thing I'm saying is that I could not afford to do the drinking that I used to do. Yeah. Right? And secondly, as you get older, your priorities change, especially if you had children. Also, you don't want to go home and bombard your family with your issues every day either. You know, I don't see that as, obviously communicating with your spouse and everything is important. You know, but
it is, but they shouldn't be the only.
It shouldn't be the last
psychological person to talk to, should they? But that's what happens. That's what happens with me and Nikki. We find ourselves quite isolated at times and end up talking to each other. But over the last 2 years probably, I've found this walk and talk thing, and I know I've got a group of solid mates there. Our friendship has developed again over that time, maybe slightly longer. And there are other people to reach out to. I've got mates, schoolmates, that I still can reach out to, but how often do we do that?
I don't ever do that. Not
as often as we should. My bunch of schoolmates, we generally see each other maybe once, twice a year. 2 of them had some pretty significant health issues over the last year, and we've seen each other a bit more because of that. Yep. But if we're not careful, that will then sort of peter out, and we'll go back to seeing each other twice a year.
I think there's a lot of. I don't have that. I don't have a support network of friends. I suppose I don't have that, and that's not like, oh, well, it's me. That's probably.
I don't think that's uncommon. Yeah, people think it's really weird that I still talk to people I went to school with, let alone I consider them some of my best mates.
Oh, I don't think that's weird. I think you're lucky. And it's not luck either, because friendship doesn't just happen. You don't just meet people and click. You have to work at friendship. You have to work at relationships. Every single relationship you have, be it with your wife, your child, your friends, there has to be input. And if there is no input, then it fizzles out. There are some friends, however, who you've known for so long that you pick up the phone or you see them and even if you haven't seen him for 10 years, or 10 years, like if you haven't seen him for 6 months, say, you know, then you just pick up from where you left off.
Yeah, there's one of that group of my schoolmates. Until probably a year ago, the last two times I saw him was at my dad's funeral and then my mum's funeral.
Right.
And he actually said to me, we went actually to a mutual mate's stag do last year. And he said, look, I've got to apologise to you. He said, I helped you. And sorry, the one other time he helped me move into, prior to my dad's funeral, he helped me move into, when I was getting divorced, into the house I moved into.
Yep.
And he said, I helped you move into that house. And he said, and then I let you go. Not intentionally. He said, but I didn't get in touch with you. He said, you went through your divorce. Your dad died, your mum died. And he said, I wasn't there for you. He said, so I'm making a point of apologising. I'm really very sorry.
Yeah, does that help? Does that help to apologise? To show that you're thinking after the fact? I know.
I didn't. It didn't bother me that he wasn't there for me. I wasn't going, fucking hell, mate. Where have you been?
But it was obviously on his mind that he hadn't been there for you.
I really appreciated him saying it.
Yeah.
I said, look, okay, I appreciate the apology. Don't worry about it. Don't stress over it. Let's just make sure that we see each other a bit more regularly. We have a bit. Probably still not enough, but
it's not a great realisation by him though.
Yeah,
you've been through all this shit and I wasn't there, and obviously that's a friendship in as much as that he's realised he wasn't there. Other people wouldn't even think about it, you know, and that's very telling of who he is.
Let me see, I'm welling up a bit thinking about it. Right,
Well,
he was my hero as a kid.
Well, to have that acknowledgement from him that you have been through all the shit and you've come out the other side on your own, that as well is a validation of your strength for him. You know, and also he wants to let you know that now he's there if you need him, kind of thing. And I think that's the important thing. I mean, look, we can't be inside each other's pockets all the time. We can't be there for every little thing. But the knowledge that somebody is willing to listen to you. And
he has since. There's been time. There's one particular occasion I said, look, can you come over? And he came over, we went out for coffee. And like you say, whenever we see each other, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, whatever, it is like being pretty much back at school or maybe back at just after school. I think, and yeah, it was great to see him. You know?
I think the reason that a lot of people have friends from childhood are that if you grew up together, you had this shared experience of your self-growth. Yeah. So you saw them all deal with different situations and grow up. Like I grew up in Somerset, but I left the first time when I was 11. But those people, Mark and Matthew Hardiman, I've known since I was 4 years old. Now, weirdly, Matthew has just moved into a house up here now. So we're not neighbours, but you know what I mean, stone's throw away. Yeah. And then I sat around the table with him. We had a bit of a journey back in the past, and it's just the same. We know each other. Even though I haven't been part of his life for literally 30 years. Finding those people is impossible after that fact. But friendships have all different levels, you know what I mean? Yeah, just because you've known someone a really long time doesn't necessarily equate to the fact that they're going to be your friend forever. What does often occur as well is I have met people over the years where I've clicked with them straight away. We've got things in common. We do, especially in the biker world and all of that. You know, you find these people that are the same. So you think, and then, you know, they're your best friend for the next 25 minutes until you realise there's an agenda or there's something that's not quite right. Also, I mean, Sean Havoc, who was on the podcast before, he is family to me. He is my brother, even though we're not blood. We have shared experiences that really shouldn't have happened through addiction and not. But the brutal fact of the matter is, you know, my son sees him as his uncle. And this whole friendship scenario is only given the gravity that you put into it. It's only given the importance that you throw at it. And I genuinely see him as family. So if I have a problem, he is the one I go to. He will make fun of me or he will suggest the thing because he knows what I need to hear. Yeah. And sometimes you're not looking for solutions. That's the other thing. Right? You probably know the solution for the thing you're having trouble with, or solutions won't help. Sometimes it's just the act of talking that cleanses it.
Definitely. I've recommended you the How to Listen book,
which I read.
That the Samaritans provide. And one thing they say on there is when you talk to someone, particularly someone that's suffering with their mental health, don't give them solutions. Don't give them solutions. Don't give them your story. Just listen.
Right, this is an important point, right? This is an important point,
Yep.
right? There are two things about listening,
Yep.
right? I got from this book.
Yep.
Firstly, when you're having a conversation with someone, if you're not engaged with them, all you're doing is you're waiting for them to stop talking so you can fill the gap.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Now, if you're genuinely listening to somebody, now you need to hear what they're actually telling you,
Yep.
not necessarily what the words are saying.
Yep.
Because a lot of the time, you know, if you ask a man, you ask a man of my age, you know, how he is, he'll tell you he's fine. Right? 9 times out of 10, he ain't fine.
No.
You know, this isn't fine. And, you know, there's the woman thing, you know, if a woman says they're fine, you know you're in trouble and all the memes and stuff that goes on with that. The same thing is for men, you know. If you ask a man how he is and he goes, yeah, I'm fine. So he dismisses that.
Yeah.
Because, one, he doesn't want to tell you how he really feels. You know, that's a myriad of different reasons. Maybe he doesn't know you well enough to think he can offload. Maybe he doesn't just bloody want to, right? But 1 time out of 10, somebody comes to you and just says, you know what? I'm not winning today. Something hurts. Or I've been in a situation, I don't know how to deal with it.
Yep.
Right? They're not, even if they say that, they're not necessarily looking for the solutions. They're looking for that ear.
Yep.
So you saying to them, in 1976, I had the same thing happen to me, and then blah, blah. What you've done is deflected. Yeah, what I do is, look, you're not the hero in every conversation. You do not need to be the winner of a conversation.
Yep.
You need to be present.
Yep.
And you need to be, it can be a two-way. And if there is a meeting of liked experience, you know, a meeting of mutual experience, rather, then that's great. But what you're not doing is detracting from the other person's statement
Yep.
by making it about you.
Yep.
Now, I am guilty of this, right? I have done it a lot, especially with my wife, right?
Yep.
So she will say something, and I think I'm being helpful, providing solutions.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not being fucking helpful, am I?
Don't
What I'm being is an opinionated idiot.
Yeah, I've done exactly the same with Nikki for
Right.
a long time, and we have slowly coached ourselves out of doing that.
This is the thing, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing now, right? It doesn't matter who you are now as a person. If you're negative, if you're not now, there's always room to change. I'm not even saying that everyone has to change.
Yeah.
What I am saying is that if there's a reason, right, somebody talks to you and they want to tell you something, then do them the respect, give them the respect they need by listening to what they're actually telling you.
Yeah.
And if that is what's coming out of their face in words, at face level, great. You can pick up on people's emotions, sentiment. You know, the inflections they have in their words will tell you how they're feeling, really. And just by them talking to you and offloading a little bit, and it should be a two-way street, but it has to be done in whatever the situation dictates.
Yeah.
So give them the space to talk.
Yep. 100%.
And don't just fill it with your own experience.
No.
If there was one thing that you would say enables you to cope with everyday life, what is it? Because you've been through a lot. You've been through the mill. You've a lot of grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've been through marriage situations. You've got kids. You've got things. Obviously, it's a puerile question because there isn't just one thing. But what is the one thing that you lean on the most?
One thing I lean on the most, and it's a bit unfair to call her a thing, is my wife.
Okay.
But I guess the one.
Didn't mean to call you a thing, Nikki. Sorry.
The coping mechanism is being conscious of how you're reacting to stuff, I guess. So when I get stressed and overworked, I am now conscious of that and realise when I'm being snappy with people or when I'm not doing what I should be doing. So I'm conscious of it because of having various previous conversations. So it's having that recognition of it to pull back and go, right, something's happening here, I need to take a pause.
Okay. There are many people who don't see the signs in themselves.
Mm.
So there are many people who will just be snappy. I'm one of them, you know, and I'm trying to see the triggers in me.
Yep.
But sometimes when you're angry or you're tired or whatever, you're not. So how do you think you learn to see those things happening where before that you were blasé to it? What makes you want to change the way you're doing things?
Being advised that it's detrimental to the relationship. So the other person has to have the courage to go, in a calm moment, you do realise when we had that chat yesterday, you ripped my head off, and all I said was, what time are you going to finish work, or whatever it is. Not at the time, because at the time you just escalate it, and obviously it flies out completely out of hand. But it's having that strength to be confident enough in the relationship to be able to say, you behaved a bit like an arsehole yesterday, could we try to stop doing that? And then it becomes a two-way conversation to say, okay, yeah, but maybe you need to understand that when I'm at work, I'm not going to be quite as receptive, or potentially less receptive, because I might be really struggling with work and concentrating on something, and therefore asking me what we're having for dinner while I'm in the middle of trying to sort out a problem, I might not be quite as receptive as if I've just walked out to go and make a cup of tea. And you go, oh, have you got a minute? Yeah. So it's a matter of having that conversation to determine when you have those potentially inflammatory conversations, and recognising that you could be tipping someone over the edge, metaphorically, by asking them something that in your head is innocuous, but they might not be in a position to be receptive to it.
I think a lot of people, when they initiate a conversation, don't think about what the other person's doing, or what they're involved in, or what's going on, because obviously human beings are fundamentally selfish beings, because why wouldn't they be? And by saying that, I mean that when you want to know the answer to a question, then that in a way is a little bit selfish, because you don't know who you're asking the question to, what's going on with them right now. And I think that's the overbearing point in life, is whoever you're talking to, you have no idea what they're actually going through. You've got no idea what they're thinking, saying, or doing, because everyone provides a front.
Yep.
Everyone shows you a mask. And I don't know anyone. Well, I mean, I suppose I do. I mean, you and Nikki are genuinely working on that. So, I mean, I don't think you wear a mask at all times, but you do have, in certain situations, a mask. I would have thought I do all the time.
Without a doubt. I think we all, as we get older, say we don't give a fuck what other people think of us. And I think when I reflect on a situation and think, well, that person got upset with me, at that point I think, yeah, but does it matter? No, it doesn't. But I think I certainly do care what people think about me in most actions that I perform at the time, subconsciously. I want to project a decent image of myself, in the same way that you say you feel, I'm putting words into your mouth, weak for going to the doctor and asking for that help. That's your kind of external persona. You don't want people to think that you're not the big strong man, and therefore you see it as a weakness. So you're subconsciously thinking, I don't want to appear in that way. We won't talk about whether it matters or not, but that's your subconscious instant reaction to it. So yeah, I think we all have those masks. I'm a different person in a different environment. I'm a bit of a chameleon. So when I'm talking with you and Sean, I'm much more cocky and much more confident. When I'm in a group of women, I'm a completely different person to fit in with that environment. And probably more cocky around what I perceive to be the sort of stereotypical, not alpha male, but a manly man. I try and step up a bit, I guess, to make sure that I'm not seen as the weedy little bloke, which I always was at school. Do you know what I mean?
I get that.
That's possibly a whole other conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose it is, but I mean, that's learnt behaviour. You've learnt how to deal with different situations, so you feel that you're equal. Yeah. And at the end of the day, equality is what everyone's looking for, so they tell you. But a lot of people want to be more equal than others.
Yes.
Do you think it's a symptom of ageing that you start to analyse your life
100%.
And you start to look at how you can make things better for yourself? Mostly because no one wants to confront that they're on the way to death, even though everyone is from the minute they're born.
Yeah.
And secondly, you want to leave a better, legacy, I suppose.
I think there is an expectation to go to school, get good results at your exams, go to university, get a decent job, meet someone, get married, have children, as if that's the standard path and everyone has to follow it. And then, let's face it, these days, I don't know what the statistics are, 2/3 of marriages fail. You then restart your life, and then you start to go, right, so what actually is important? Should we really have gone down that route? Did we just get married because that's what was expected of us? Did we then have kids because that's the next step? and society puts that pressure on you. You know, you get married and people, you know,
First question is,
auntie, whoever will go, oh, when you having kids then? And then you have one kid, or when you having another one? Society puts that pressure on you to follow that. There's a group that I follow on Facebook. It's called, and they do they talk about a thing called the script. The script is what stops people doing things, because there is this perception that you should be doing this.
Yeah.
No one's actually telling you that, but there's this notion that
well,
you should.
societal leading. I think, you know, stems from religion, stems from the social control that religious scripts give you.
Yeah, so I think you go through that cycle, not knowing that you're going through that cycle, and then you know, the apple cart gets upset and the marriage breaks down, or whatever happens, you suffer, you know, a traumatic incident, bereavement, whatever. And I think part of getting older, as I said to you before we started recording today, is realising you hit 50 and go, right, well, that's definitely more than half of my life gone.
Yeah. I'm on the way out.
Let's reassess things and see what's actually important.
I think for me, having to look at my own behaviour and my own way of doing things, I think that I'm definitely looking for a better path. I mean, I've been 23 stone. I've been fat as you like. Didn't give a shit. Right, I've been fat all my life. Bullied for being fat up until the point where I realised that actually, if you're going to bully me, I'm going to hurt you. And then that realisation then causing all kinds of other trouble. Nowadays, when you're young, you do say, I don't care what anyone thinks, but you desperately care what everyone thinks, because obviously you're looking for a mate, literally. You're looking for a group of friends. You're looking for a tribe to belong to. Yep. You know, tribalism is still rife. You know, at the end of the day, we're pack animals. Solitude's a great thing, but not for long. I think that as I have got older, I have understood that maybe my previous life was a mistake, but there's nothing I can do about it now. So therefore, I don't feel like I have to make amends. Did
you feel kind of invincible, and that life was just to be lived? And
I was Teflon.
Yeah,
I got away with everything, and there's a lot of people who didn't survive.
Yeah,
and there's a little bit of life guilt, because some really good people died when they shouldn't have done. My best friend Neil Cook, he died in a stupid traffic thing. He had a truck, like a 4x4 Land Rover thing, open topped, it flipped and it killed him. He was a lawyer, successful guy, lovely bloke, and he was my best friend, genuinely. It's not my best friend because he's dead. I'm not sainting him because he died, which a lot of people do. It fucks me off, so I'll be talking about that. You know, he genuinely was there for me at all times, and then he died, and it's like, well, hold on, I'm a despicable human being. The things I do are no good to society, but yeah, I'm the one that stay alive. There's a bit of guilt in that, you know? And he died years and years ago. I mean, this is not new. I think as you get older, you have to look at what you need to survive. And I think survive's a very strong word, but I think it's true. Because if you don't look for a better way of living, and you don't look to lose weight, or you don't look to make yourself happier, that's what I'm trying to do. By losing weight, by getting to where I'm going, I feel I will be happier. You know, I already understand the search for money and all the trinkets that go with life. They don't make you happy. I've been there. I've had it. Right? Now I don't have anything, you know, more or less. And, you know, it's not about money. It is about self-respect without being, you know, insular or on your own. It's about finding a path where you can be the happiest you can be.
Yeah.
And happy isn't, grinning, smiling, blah, blah, blah. I know plenty of people who are smiling, shiny people on the outside who are tortured on the inside.
Yeah.
I think in a journey in life, I think me taking antidepressants is a step to give me the brain clearance that I need to formulate a plan. Because as my dad will tell you, there's always got to be a plan. I think we better stop, mate.
All right, sounds good.
It's good. Lee and I will be doing 50 and Coping for as long as you people want us. The first episode, which George, the producer, thank you to George for producing, did on YouTube, has done really well. And right, there's like 121 views in a week. Right now, in the realms of YouTube, in the realms of the world, that's not huge. But I tell you this, for me personally, as the skeleton face on the card, I'm amazed and grateful that you'd even take the time to do it. So thank you for that. If you want to be more involved, there's a Patreon page in the description below. You will find also links to Samaritans. People can help you. And if you want to join in with us, there's loads of journal videos done by Lee and I about subjects that we find difficult. If you feel like it, click on the Patreon link It's about £4 a month to support us so we can buy the gear we need and keep going. And also, once we've got that, we will then be donating all of that money to mental health charities that we choose. So when we get a bigger following, hopefully we can do some good instead of just talking about it. But until then, remember, communication is the key to all things. Frog in my throat. Communication is the key to all things. If you can talk to somebody, whoever that is, they will listen. They will help you just by listening. Remember, if you are listening, it's not about giving an opinion. It's not about telling them about you. It's about listening to what they've got to say. See you next time, eh? 50 and coping.